Hernandez from the Facilitation Community Action Partnership. They have some great organizational standards that she's going to share about community engagement and how that's really helped spur and gain improved results when they when partnering with the community and how it just is incorporated to the everyday. And then we'll go in and then actually talk more about what community engagement is, tying it back to the homework that we did from our last learning community, which was to go and observe and listen on how your work organization talks about community engagement. And then we'll have some lunch from Sauce. It's a great barbecue place downtown. And we'll take a break to get some lunch, but then we'll jump right back in and going and doing an assessment on an individual level on how where you are and what your level of community engagement is, where you can improve upon, and talk about all the tools and resources, then next steps and close. This is all to better understand how your organization stays relevant and responsive to community needs, to help assess your organization's capacity and ability to meet the ongoing needs of our community and the current environment, and learn and share strategies to build internal policies and practices to improve community engagement and trust. And that's kind of what we'll be talking about, the theme of all the exercises that we're going through and the work that we'll do today. So without further ado, I want to pass it off to our speaker, Lucy Hernandez. She is really talking about how increasing community engagement starts internally, with everyone having a shared understanding within your organization or within your own team of how the organization conducts community engagement, and then just setting how they set people up internally to be more intentional, coordinated, and purposeful when they're doing community engagement. And yeah, I guess talking more, like really going depth in the organizational standards that they've really honed in and been part of the practices for a while. So Lucy Hernandez, she's the Assistant Director for the Exclusive Glen Trinity Community Action Partnership, like I said. She's a certified community action professional that has administered multi-million-dollar budgets from agencies, nonprofits in California for almost 20 years, developed recognized programs and models in the state and at the national level. And as a professional in the human services field, she has led agencies in both rural, multi-county, and urban communities in developing her teams with that's over 200, in total over 250 employees, and just building strong, effective, innovative community programs for residents. And that's part of our feedback was getting a little more insight and hearing more from a rural perspective, and just a different perspective. So I'm really appreciative of Lucy taking the time to join us today. So Lucy, can please come up?
Thank you. Thank you. Well, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I'm used to my teacher voice, but I'm thinking I may have to use this for online. Okay. Okay, well, good morning. I really appreciate the opportunity to come speak with you today. You know, as Ian mentioned, I'm a part-time assistant director for Glen Trinity, but I'm also a consultant and trainer for Strategy 2.0. So I work with my goal, and we actually do regional work, where we actually take a lot of what we learned in the field, and we actually go out and train and consult for different organizations and counties in California. And so today I would like to share with you something I'm really proud of, and it's actually not something that I would say happened overnight, but it was really about building your team. And I really truly believe, for me, my passion is building our staff, building the team, being able to provide a focus, a vision for the staff. So community engagement is actually something to introduce who we are. Is community action partnership really says it all. We are about the community, we're about activating, and we're also about partnerships. So in order for us to actually follow the model of what we are, is helping people help themselves, we really know that we can't do this work. We're not the experts. And we need to seek input from our community so they can actually give us the feedback and the needs that they see in their community. And so, what I would like to share with you is our community engagement efforts in rural communities. I have the opportunity to work with Exclusive Glen Trinity. I actually worked for Exclusive Glen Trinity for 14 years, and then moved on to the Action Partnership in Sonoma County for a few years, and came back just recently back to Trinity. And so today I actually would like to share with you who we are. So how many of you actually have partnered or know community action agencies in your one, two? Okay. So let me share with you a little bit of who we are. Community action is really an entity that was developed back in 1964. President Lyndon Johnson actually approved the Economic Opportunity Act in 1964 because we're looking to create a network that is grassroots, that is community-led, that is neighborhood-based to support anti-poverty initiatives. And so when we receive the funds, this is actually what we received today. It is called a Community Services Block Grant. This actually is what designates how we leverage services, how we leverage partnerships, and how we attack or we combat the root cause of poverty in our community. One of the things that Community Services Block Grant and the Act requires us to do is they require that they hold us accountable to ensure that we have internal systems in place. And this is what I think that it should be in your packet. You have what we have, the organization standards. Are 50 performance standards that public community action agencies are required to follow. And if you're a nonprofit community action agency, you would have to adhere to 15 standards. So community action agencies in the state of California, we have over 64 agencies. It is a mandate that we have one community action agency at least in every county. So here in Sacramento, we have CEDA is one of your CSG entities, and you actually have some other partners. The Community Services Development Agency actually funds as a state administrator. And in the nation, we have over 1,100 community action agencies. We are actually required to follow the same process and standards that you have in front of you. To give you some background history, community action agencies are all different. If you were to visit my community action agency and were to visit the Sacramento Community Action Agency, we're very different, and that is created on purpose. We are not to be the same service provider. We are to create services that are designated to serve the community we live in. We actually have also created internal processes in what I would like to have you do is, as we go through this, if you could go to page 5, it'll give you an indicator of what we are required to do as we move to the community engagement. Local impact priorities are important for us. So we actually are required every 2 years to have a community action plan. That means that every we have to go out to the community and seek input. This means that my team, once they've started a process and they implement a plan, we're already working for the next time. And so we are always making sure that those priorities are not just a priority that was needed 5 years ago, but we are always staying on top of what are the current priorities of the community. One of the unique things about community action agencies is board composition. We have a tripartite board, which means that we have 3 sectors on our board. We have public agencies, we have private entities, business sector, and we also have low-income sectors. So we have a public elected official, we would have business sectors, and we also have the low-income. So that there's always a check and balances, so that we never run agendas or services that are geared towards one sector over the other. That is really where we come in and start promoting community engagement. If we actually want to be held accountable, what a better way to be held accountable by if it weren't for our low-income sectors sitting on our board and telling us what the directives are. One of the pieces that we see here is that organizational standards also require boards to follow specific elements that they are required to do to support us as staff so that we can continue providing community-based programming. So let me share with you about the 2-year community action plan, and then I'm going to get a little hot here. So the 2-year community action plan that I mentioned to you earlier is basically a community needs assessment. How many of you actually conduct community needs assessment? What are some of the methods that you currently use when you're seeking community input?
We reached out to partners in the community and done kind of like one-on-one interviewing, and we've gone out to different community groups and we've done kind of like focus groups on different topics, great, as well as individuals, like the community members, one-on-one surveys.
Perfect. Yeah. So we have surveys, we have the one-on-ones, we have community town halls. We're going to talk a little bit more about what different methods we use as well. But one of the pieces is that we know that as providers, we have to ask the right questions. The question is developing particularly, we want to make sure that community action plan not just embeds the community needs assessment, but it also embeds the partnerships. So something Lindsay mentioned earlier is we cannot do this alone. And so we know we have to leverage our partnerships. And so we have faith-based organizations, we have obviously public agencies, we have community-based nonprofit organizations. We also work with a lot of our Boys and Girls Club and working with all different entities. The reason is that we actually can maximize, one, the population that they're serving, and two, we also support each other through our network by gathering and getting the information. Now, to being able to support each other as we develop a plan so that we can actually connect each other's services so that we can provide a network and being able to maximize collectively what we're trying to do. The community needs assessment, as I mentioned, is every 2 years, and this is obviously geared towards community engagement and community input. So let me share a little bit about how we do this. If I mentioned to you the organizational standards that are in front of you, if you look at page 5, you'll see that these standards, the ones that I would like to focus on is primarily under community engagement. The reason that we follow these internal organizational standards is because if we don't start by addressing how important it is for us to have a collective vision with our teams, we're missing an opportunity. And one of the things that I mentioned to you earlier today is the staff, the team, they actually are the heartbeat of the organization. And they know what's happening in the field. They know what those will look like. They know how important it is to be the face of the organization. And so staff actually come in with innovative ideas and approaches, or they actually start having a higher level of buy-in to processes that we're going to incorporate to gather community engagement. And so when we look at these organizational standards, we have basically 3 specific areas that we're focusing. In order for us to be able to follow a collective approach, we want to make sure that we prioritize and we become focal areas in our agency. And that is consumer input and involvement is a key. It's a priority for everything we do in our work. Second, community engagement. How do we do a better job? It's always something that we're striving towards. And third is how do we do a better job assessing the needs of our community? So if we have this as an ongoing priority in our organization, we're always striving towards improving and looking at how do we do something better next. So these are to give you some reference of how this becomes part of the culture and part of the strategic plan for the staff meeting. So this is a small font, so I apologize, but it is actually in your handout, as I mentioned in page 5. So I want to share with you, just to give you an overview. This gives you clearly the visibility and clearly what the organizational standards stand for. Because I'm a public entity, a public community action agency, obviously the standard that connects to public tells me specifically what I need to do. If you're a nonprofit community action agency, then you obviously follow the private sector. But here's the thing, if we look at these 4 specific areas, the first one really is about ensuring that we as community action agencies and you as an organization should focus on building the network. In the human services field, there's something that I can share with you in the last 20 years, is that it's all about social capital. If we don't have the social capital within our network, we're not doing service for our community. You building that network, building that partnership allows you to leverage those programs, those resources, those relationships, those being able to connect your clients. And if we look at how we do a better job, this is really what starts gearing us towards the plan. What is it that we as a team are going to start working, and who is not a participant? So really mapping out what partnerships are key, what partnerships are non-traditional, what are the partnerships that we should strengthen and improve our relationships, and those are really the ones that we start focusing on as a plan throughout the year. Second standard is focusing on making sure that we are gathering information, actively gathering and getting information. So how we do that is obviously based on relationships. A lot of our partners, a lot of your organizations are required to do community assessments. Many of your organizations have to complete certain surveys and requirements. If we could actually combine our efforts, what a better way for us to actually meet your needs and meet our needs as well. So looking at how, I'll share with you how Verison is actually in Mariposa. Recently there was a project where Mariposa County Health and Human Services partnered with First Five, partnered with Community Action. And instead of having multiple community assessments for the county, they decided to come together and put all their resources, their network, their staffing, their funding, to be able to actually create a holistic community assessment that's really a key opportunity because once your funders see that you're able to leverage your funding with another partner, what a better way to be able to connect and also interconnect our different populations. Third standard is really about making sure we have the responsibility and we should have a process in which we actually are communicating the results to our community. But here's one of the things. When we're meeting with clients in our communities or different groups, it's important that we can translate what we identified in a way that's meaningful. Being able to explain it in a way that people can understand and grasp. So one of the things that I would say as a strategy is put your call to action at the end. So we identified housing as number one, and here's a call to action. Please join us on the board. Please join us on our commission. Please join us on our stakeholder plan. There's opportunity for you to hear your voice. That is really where you start seeing a purpose of something that you're required to do, but you have to put the ask out there because that community resident is really the critical person. They are really who we work for. We're public servants. And so having their voice at the table really allows them to start understanding the leadership capacities that they have. It really empowers individuals to actually speak up. And many of us have lived in conditions where we would love to make a change, but sometimes we just don't know how. So how do we message that? So there's something you could do is practice that 30-second speech that you can give to someone that actually you can capture, something that's meaningful to them. Give them some data, but you need to finish with the heart by asking, here's how I see you employment. Or do you have ideas? That is where people actually feel validated and they realize that you see potential in them. And now they want to join. And so those are some of the strategies incorporated into the work we do. The last standard is really geared towards ensuring that we always have opportunities for volunteers. And one of the things that we know is how many of you volunteer or have volunteered in the past? When we volunteer, maybe we were asked by our parents to volunteer, but many of us volunteered because there was something with that company or agency, organization, something that attracted me, maybe their mission statement, maybe I saw them doing some great work in the community, there was something that I connected with. Well, one of the things that we as organizations can do is create an opportunity, a venue for people to actually understand what we do, and to be able to join them, have them join you as champions. Those are components that we can do to bridge our community. And one of the things that I would say is many of us, I know community action, we are required to have game time. And so if your funder is requiring a match, or if your funder requires game time, what a better way to use your volunteers to do so? And that's one of the elements that you can have. Plus, your volunteers may have expertise and skill set that is missing in your group. And it comes into a strength-based approach because your volunteers are really supplementing knowledge and expertise that will support and strengthen your organizational mission. So that's another element that we encourage in the community. So these four elements, partnerships, making sure that we're gathering input and information, making sure that we're communicating and we're responsible in communicating the results and how they can be part of the solution, and then looking at opportunities for individuals to volunteer are four strategies that can help you start gathering champions in your community. And that's really the message. It's about looking at what are the three areas that you would like for individuals to know about your organization. That 30-second speech, very critical, because once you can connect with someone, they have their own network that comes along with them. And what a better way for us to gather and get community support. So here's some of the engagement models and thinking. And what was your name? Nora. Thank you, Nora. She shared some of the engagement methods that are utilized throughout her organization. Here are some of the methods that we have used as well. I know this is not a list that has all the different methods, but just to generate some of the best practices. The town hall and community meetings are typical of what we can see in gathering of input in looking at what are the community needs, priorities, gaps, challenges, threats. One of the areas that is now being utilized more and more is because we have seniors at home that may have mobility issues and not be able to come to town halls, or we have maybe individuals that are just geographically in areas where there's barriers to get to the location. Is town halls are now also you can do it online. And so how many of you have done online town halls?
Yeah, I have another question.
Oh,
Okay. How do you go about getting people to these meetings, or online, or?
Great question. So her question is, and then I'll come to you. Her question is, what the other participant is asking, how do you get people to the town halls and to these communities? And that's a great question. So there's a couple of ways of doing it. One, once you have a location set up, you want to make sure that location is a location that people feel safe, people know how to access, that we always look at transportation. Is it near a bus? If there's no bus because we're in a rural community, is it a place safe that where people can actually park? What we do is once we have a location identified, we actually reach out to all our partners to be able to bring their clients, bring the individuals that they work with, and really ask the partnership because one of our first standards was build that alliance. They know that their voice is going to impact also their program because we're collectively creating a community environment. There's buy-in. We have the community partners helping with transportation. We have allocated also discretionary funds so we can help people with gas or bus tickets or taxi tickets. There's ways of also looking at coordinated efforts so that we can actually look at maybe a taxi system that can help drive individuals that are getting mobility issues. But there's just a way of doing it is having meetings with the partners and really brainstorming what's the best way to do it. One of the other things that's very critical with these communities is you need to designate funding or partner with someone to have childcare. And we know how hard this is because we need the adults engaged or the youth as well. But when we have little ones, sometimes they're not. This is something that maybe it's hard for the kids to stay seated for an hour and a half or 2 hours. So find childcare. And so as a provider, we actually would use our AmeriCorps to actually do our childcare. And they would actually have school readiness, booklets and letters and numbers and board games so that we could have the children in a separate area. Parents were comfortable, they would participate. Another thing that should be allocated is one, funding is not allowed as a funder, that's okay. We actually get sponsored. So we would seek a restaurant or a catering that actually would sponsor it, which covers cost of $0, but we promote them as marketing, as a partner in this process. So there's different methods.
So if you're in a community that doesn't have funds and doesn't have a board, but we have a lot of partners in that community, so there are no funds for these other activities, and that's one of our difficult efforts is getting people to these obstacles, not efforts. Do you have suggestions when there is hard funds? So like the ACES Connection communities, for the most part, don't have funds.
So I would suggest that if you have a community meeting that is going to meet free, you need to put in really, you need to share and communicate effectively why the community is important to you, and collectively, I may not have money, but I have the staff to run the meeting. What are some things that you can do? And really, sometimes partners have the ability to have some discretion, or you seek in community volunteers who can come and help. And so it's really about, I haven't been in a situation where my partners have not seen the state that there is in these meetings, so they actually will say, we will help with bringing chairs, or we will bring top people. So there's been collective mindset. So I think it really starts with you building that is making sure that you can clearly communicate why this is important and have your partners come in and provide the feedback and input on what they can help with. So I'm going to give this question and then I'll continue.
So I love that you mentioned the child care and the food use as well. Two other things is getting a sense from the audience that you're wanting to invite about scheduling. Because a lot of it comes down to schedules, right? If you're approaching parents, it can be really hard, if you know it's sports season in your community and there's practice or there's a game or whatever going on in the evening. So trying to get a sense of what timing is going to work for the audience that you're looking for and that you're not competing with another event or something else that's going on during that same time. The other piece is I've always had the best luck getting people to attend when you have youth as speakers, especially if it's something related to, a lot of you like that to young people, but if you can have a group of young people that are willing to speak and to be engaged on that topic, I find, especially parents, but also other adults really value what the young people have to say in the community because they kind of have insider information oftentimes. They're really the boots on the ground on a lot of those topics. So I found when you really, you have to do some skill building with the youth to make sure they have capacity and feel comfortable stepping into that role and supporting them as an adult ally. But I really have found that the young people really can draw a crowd. And if you advertise it that way, like our young people are speaking to this issue, come hear what they have to say.
Excellent, excellent point, thank you. And as you mentioned that, in Lake County currently, the child abuse prevention, the CAPC, is actually working where they actually have worked with schools, the high schools, and they have selected these youth ambassadors, youth leaders, and they are giving them leadership training, and what they're doing is actually coming and speaking to the board of supervisors, to the city council, and they're speaking about this is what poverty is doing to my family, and it's a generational. It's happened with my grandparents, it's happened with my parents, and here I'm in the same cycle because there's no opportunity. And I would like for you to help us, create opportunities for youth. And so it's powerful. And so Lake County, I would say first 5 Lake County is a good resource. They actually have put together an outline of what they speak about, their story. They actually take pictures of them, and this was all created because they worked in a partnership with the college, and the students actually did this project for them. And so it's always about collective, how do we do this? And when you'll find that partners have resources where they have their own networks that they can bring to be able to hopefully get individuals involved in. So thank you so much. That's a great point. Scheduling is very important, looking at and also being culturally sensitive that sometimes you may want to schedule something on a Saturday, but you realize it's also religiously it may impact your community, and so you have a sector that may not be available. So things like that are very important. So thank you. And there was a question here.
I apologize for backtracking so far to answer your question. We do parent workshops at Help Me Grow, and when we do that, we actually use the junior league kids, so high school students that are volunteering they do it cooperatively with their parents. So we have them volunteer to come and do the child care at our events. And then a lot of the local high schools have kind of the same setup where they need the hours. And we also have the community colleges because they have child development programs, and those people need hands-on experience, but they're willing to come and run it, and all that people do for free. Thank you. Okay.
And that's what I love about the learning community is because there is no one person that's an expert here. We all have strategies that we're trying, that we're testing, and this is the opportunity to gather ideas. So I really appreciate the feedback. Those are excellent. I'm going to take some of those as well.
And a couple other groups, the Boys and Girls Club can also be a great resource. They usually have teen groups that are looking for ways to engage in community projects to work on. Your local Friday Night Live chapters, if you have Friday Night Live groups, or other youth commissions, or even in the faith communities and youth groups, anywhere that, teen centers, anywhere that young people are congregating. If you can come in, maybe try to bring a snack or a fun activity or some swag or something, and work with them a couple times and get them engaged. It's pretty amazing what young people will be willing to do with their energy for free if you pique their interest, right? So it's about talking to them about things that matter to them and getting them engaged.
I agree. Food is somehow makes it all better for everyone. So even like $5 pizza. Yeah. And so that's really, so those are some resources to hopefully help you. And one of the things we use is our Parents in the Family Resource Center. So we have a parent leadership group, and our part of their parent leadership is to encourage active citizenship for others and themselves. And so what they do is they'll volunteer to do childcare as well, so that others in their community can come and be part and voice their needs and concerns in the community. So just being strategic, but also being creative. Great, thank you. Great question. Okay, so as I mentioned, town hall community meetings are a great method. I was just sharing, obviously, the new approach has been doing or social media online town halls now, which allows others to engage. Basically, your partners should have their own network, so it's important for us to utilize and capitalize for their network. So looking at utilizing their social media websites, looking at their social media and their websites, looking at utilizing their email network so that we can provide them either a survey link, get them maybe hard copies, whichever way works best for your partner, so they can help distribute that information throughout their channels. Looking at board and commission representation is very important. In community action, we actually, like I mentioned, we have low income sector, so we want to make sure that our low income is really speaking on behalf of the community, and so we want to make sure that we have an opportunity to engage and gather or recruit low income individuals. And sometimes they're nominated by individuals in the community, and so we want to make sure we give opportunities and train them and help them be engaged in their team as well. But giving opportunities to your youth or low income in your boards is really important. And they bring their own ideas and dynamics, and also they serve the population we're trying to reach, so it's a better way to connect with our community. Obviously, these are local events and outreach that are typical for us when we're looking at surveying or doing them one-on-one, or doing sometimes we can do group presentations and then meetings or fairs. We want to make sure we can ask individuals to give us their input. Social media, as I mentioned, promotion and outreach. We actually, one of the things with social media is it's important for you to have a social policy in your organization. So if you don't have one, maybe take a look at developing one. Those are sometimes the barriers that we found ourselves early on, is not having a social policy that we knew how to utilize. So when we developed our approaches, we had also parameters, and that'll allow a lot of, it'll decrease a lot of misinformation or sometimes staff branding clients when that's not the way we want to do it. So clear social policies, and I would highly advise. Staff presentations to collaboratives and regional meetings. So if you currently have continuum care meetings, or if you have first five meetings, or you have I'm not sure, housing collaborative or different family resource center meetings, try to get on the agenda and being able to present your information, who you are and why you're part of the community assessment, and seek their input, because sometimes we identify our consumers or clients as the ones giving us input, but you as a provider also have input because you're seeing what's happening when they come into your organization to gather. You're limited in what you can help. So utilize that and you gather information from each individual in that meeting, because it's very powerful. And one of the things that we do is we collect the data, and it is consumer-based, and then it's our client-based, and then we also have data that is our service providers. And so that is also allows us to see who's missing and how do we better connect with those providers. And then basically the community surveys, I think, is one of the more traditional approaches. Electronic, we use SurveyMonkey. We actually wrote a grant, and we actually purchased iPads, and the iPads are utilized with staff. We have staff working in the 3 counties, and so they actually would take the iPad and actually survey individuals when they're working with clients, or if they're in a meeting, they would take the iPad and pass the iPad to their iPads, so that they actually would have providers, or if they had clients fill out the survey. This is something that we had a dozen, and we utilize our assessment. Hard copies, obviously, for individuals that do not have emails, or we can't, gather electronic surveys. And then we obviously want to make sure we always allocate funding for equipment, and that the staff are trained, and that we also allocate and make this a priority staff time, so that they can actually go and do community assessment or outreach. Any questions? So here's the reason why we do community engagement, and that is, one of the things is that in order for us to be accountable and responsible, we need to ensure that community-based programs are actually operating based on what the community needs. So that is obviously the number one factor for us. Also, because funders are requiring that we actually be more transparent about the services that we offer. And when we actually provide feedback for funders that this is a service that we're just developing, or that your programs are reaching milestones because of the needs in the community, it really allows that funder to understand how best you are in working in the community, which obviously leads to a higher outcome, and also higher, I would say, a relationship that would be strengthened with the funders. We want to make sure that community engagement is incorporated into your service development. So that means that staff, when you're looking at the positions, you're looking also that outreach and community engagement is a focal component in their job description, and that you allow them to utilize that time. So here's an example. You can put it in the job description, but if you don't make that a priority in the culture, staff are gonna get bogged down with client files and client intakes. But if you basically say, I want to make sure once a month, at least you go out and meet with at least 2 new partners, that is actually a deliverable that you're seeking. I'm giving that as an example because you can come up with whatever deliverable you like. So you may ask your staff, I want to make sure that at least once a month you're out there in a new event and you're promoting our program. Or once a month or twice a month, I would like for you to do with the marketing team and you're just working on marketing material. Whatever is that deliverable is, be very clear on what you expect from them. Because it literally helps staff know that they are supported, to be creative, to be able to reach out, to be able to grow. And community engagement is ingrained in the culture, it's ingrained in what we do every day. Leadership opportunities, our teams are hungry for opportunities. Our team members are also our successors. They're going to be growing into, positions. They want to grow in this field, be it with our organization or different organizations. We're building our future champions. And what's important is to be able to give them opportunities to lead some of the community meetings, to lead maybe the planning meetings, maybe have them lead where they can actually go meet with a specific population or neighborhood so that they can work with the community and actually create a plan on how do we approach a specific neighborhood because it is, culturally appropriate, or let staff get creative and be able to be really part of that strategic planning of how we develop these outreach efforts. And so those opportunities really build confidence in staff, but at the same time buy-in and also they bring ideas that we may not be thinking about. Capacity building and internal culture, as we mentioned, is if we have these standards really build anything. If we as supervisors or managers or directors do not support our team. And one of the things is about role modeling that behavior. So one of the things that I do with my team is I share how important it is to build alliances, to build relationships, to really role modeling so that what's happening will look like. One of the pieces about capacity building is taking staff with you to shadow you, taking opportunities for you to shadow them. Those are components where people feel validated and also feel that they're learning. And it is process, something that they enjoy doing throughout the day. And it is something that once the community sees that we are accessible, that we are part of the community members are going to be receptive and giving us input, being part of our team. And you never know, this also may increase your higher rate of hiring consumers or former consumers into your organization. So here's some other ones we in volunteer opportunities that, as I mentioned, is very important, including AmeriCorps or Vista into your organization. It's very important. Vista in AmeriCorps projects were my favorite. I had that project for 3 years, and that was phenomenal, and I just enjoyed working with this team. We also look at the in-kind support. So when we have volunteers, we track how many hours they provide to us, and then we let our funders know at the end of the year we have 5,000 hours of volunteers, which translates to X amount of dollars. And the funder allows, this is one of the things that the funders like to see is the leveraging of funds. Faith-based organizations, as I think Nora mentioned as well, making sure our business sector is at the table and also supporting us. We have business sectors that support us with sponsorship. For marketing, sponsorship, they also can be in, if you're a nonprofit, it can also be a sponsor or a donor to the organization, making sure that they can also support you with meals and food. We actually had a project where we were rebuilding a shelter for women, and we had volunteers from the community come and help. And we had a restaurant that served 300 burritos, and they brought it, and it was really community, and this is the first time that a lot of volunteers moved up this restaurant. Now this restaurant has a following because community members are thankful that they took that time to support a project that really is helping overall all of us. Local economic impact, we know that if our families are doing better, if our relationships are good with the community in general, clients are going to be able to access services, families are going to be healthier, that incurs return on investment in community members then spend and live locally, spend locally, which shows obviously economic growth and support to businesses and economic sectors. So now I guess I will open it up and see what are some of the other communication efforts that you currently do. to share any other approaches? That's great, thank you.
Hey, my name is Martin, and I'm with Better Health. This is Medicap time here in Sacramento County. I think something that we do, me and my partner here, we attend a lot of community health fairs and research fairs throughout the county. The fact that we each know two different languages, I think, helps. So the more we're out in the community, and sometimes, a lot of people go to these same events too, and they see it there, and I think building that trust as you go from event to event, it makes it a lot easier for them to communicate with you. And also, you see the same community-based organizations present, so then you start building that partnership on its own by just simply attending these sessions.
Thank you. Very good point. And it's one of the things that is key is when your partners see that you're side by side and helping each other, and you really actually have the same common purpose. We just have different reasons to be sometimes. It really validates, and so keeping our relationship with partners is so important. So thank you for sharing that.
Our agency is fairly new to Logan County and very small. So we leverage our parent agency as our buy-in to the community. Our parent agency has been around for about 25 years in the community. So that's been really helpful. First, we sort of had to convince the therapists at our parent agency that we could help them too. And then they started kind of sharing that out, and now we're incorporated into their events, and they share our information pretty openly. So that's been helpful to get the buy-in because people know our parent agency.
And who is your parent agency? What age group?
The Northern California Children's Therapy Center, and then Healthy for Yoga County is their program.
Oh, great. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Do we have another?
In our community, my name is Nancy. I'm a children's with the Storytime Family Resource Center. So one of the things I love to share is in my previous role, I was a community it's really partnering with a lot of organizations. One of our initiatives is so over the years we've always done it just individually, and then we started knowing that there's so many healthcare things that are happening within the community. Why not put it together and make it one big event? So for the community to really engage in. And so this last 2 years we've been able to really engage with the Shara family. And they are a family that just hosted a lot of safety dinners in the community, and they did it all out of their pocket. And I kind of overheard that we're doing a health fair, allowing them to have our organization was doing it. And so we partnered up, and eventually it grew. We had ties sponsoring, we had health net sponsoring, we had a lot of local churches putting their efforts to provide chairs and tables. So it became a real collective partnership where we were just doing all individual, but we ended up coming together and doing those
And that actually will take care of a lot of the gaps, because sometimes she alone as an organization can't do it all. You don't have participation. And we all have walked into a community meeting and find there's the same 5 people. Yeah, which is great.
They heard
it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so I think
Yeah, I've been typing in, and they're very inactive. They're very inactive.
So let's come together and collectively.
No one has responded to any.
What a better way to engage.
And there's like
To build
7
network,
people on.
support each other, your staff,
Really?
other staff. It's an excellent opportunity, the same model. Gathering all your partners instead of having 4 or 5 throughout the year, let's do it all together and build a way that we can build frameworks to be able to excellent, thank you for sharing. Okay, great. Well, so as we know, in the learning community, really our purpose is to be able to hear and listen. I am not an expert because I'm always learning. So I really appreciate you sharing some of the strategies that you utilize, some of the challenges that you're facing. This is what we have, why we do learning community, is that it brings all of us as partners to respond as best we can. And we know that we have limitations and challenges, but we see the challenges as opportunities to learn from each other. Some of us actually may be the first time we meet, and now we want to maybe connect and maybe I can shadow and visit. That's really about that what I think here is social capital. And if we can build a strong network, that means it's a strong safety net for our customers, our youth. And so that's really what engagement is about. And so focusing on having an internal structure or internal culture that allows or supports community engagement is very critical. So what I would suggest is go back and look at what do we currently have as an informal process in community engagement, and then how can we work on formalizing a process in policy. And I know that sometimes that sounds too dry and just formalize it, but I will let you know that if you could actually put it in writing, somehow it translates for us as a team that this is something that we honor, that we adopt, and we support. And so really, staff feel that they have the opportunity to grow in these areas, to give input, to be able to shape the status quo, to say, you know, this team, I know you've had a student that it no longer works, that this is what we're finding. What a better way to have communication and really support staff to give us ways that we can enhance and strengthen our community. So with that, I want to go ahead and thank you for the opportunity today to kind of share with you a little bit about our engagement work in Trinity. I just want to share really quickly as I close is that I truly believe in market need quote. And that really is because we actually went as an example of how community engagement works. We, in Glenn County, we have a town called Hamilton City. I don't know if you've heard of Hamilton City. It's a small town that is probably 8 miles west from Chicago. But it's a very small town, over 3,000 people only. And because it is within the county, it is our smallest population. Over 95% of the population is Latino and migrant workers primarily. And what we found is that we would ask our community residents to travel to the bigger towns for the services, dealing with rural communities which have a lack of transportation. What we did is we did community assessment, and we identified that there was a big need for help for seniors, for youth engagement activities. So what we did is, after a community assessment, and the boys, because the community was so, they were actually excited about having someone come and ask them what they needed. They actually didn't just give you the need. They also said, but here's what we can do. And what we did is we opened up a family resource center on a school site in Hamilton State. And what we found is that even though we had allocated a coordinator position and a specialist position, what we found is we had more parents volunteering, and we realized that the parents became parent leaders. They actually were trained to teach parenting classes. They started leading parent cafes. I wanted to share with you that with a small amount of funding and with a key partnership with the school, we were able to create this project, which the parents, what they did through their parent leadership project, that next summer, they actually created a youth program, a youth summer program, and it was geared in 4 areas. It was geared at education. They created the youth in science, so they actually got to do little experiments with children, and they had to learn about just science projects, labs, science, all those kind of things. Second one is about the arts, and the children that were interested in theater, actually they had to put together a circuit, and the parents actually created a circuit for the community, and all these children in the summer were practicing and training their art, what they like to do, and they actually created a circuit. And once again, and then the next one they started focusing on job training, or it was more for the year for the youth, job trade assessment, what kind of career you wanted to go to. And then the third one was about leadership in general, having other youth come in and speak to them, become more of a mentor for them. In general, what we saw is that we would have never come up with those commitments if it weren't for the parents that took ownership. But they took ownership because we met them. And that's really the key, is that if we could actually be part of the solution, it doesn't mean we have to do it all. The community can work it out. So thank you for what you're doing. Keep up the good work. I appreciate the opportunity to have you here today, and I thank you for sharing today and asking questions. My information is here in the resource. Thank you, keep up the good work, and thank you, Lindsay, for having me here today, and I'm looking forward to continuing to work with you.
No, just thank you to Lucy from online and saying that the information has been great and very thorough and that they are excited to hear more of the learning community. So.
Great, thank you. Then, like you mentioned, as we're already doing a lot in the community and a lot of community engagement, were there things that she said that you're going to go back and think about and you might be helpful for you to utilize in your future work? Or anything that stuck out that was really interesting or you think would be helpful?
Yeah, this is part of meeting with parents or meeting the community members where they're at, removing those obstacles or barriers that might be between us and forming a better partnership with them, looking at everything. Also, I kind of felt a little validated with some of the suggestions that with some of the efforts that were taking place, and really looking at the job descriptions and the whole point that's going out with actual community strategy and actual part of our community.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. That was actually something that I wrote down a lot of notes on, is just having it be ingrained in the culture, ingrained in just the everyday work that you do, not just a specific activity or something that you do to promote your program or your organization, but it's just something that is in
and part of their everyday work, and how to just build upon that and what more we can do. And at the end of the day, it's really building trust and partnerships with the community. And like you said, you think that from what I heard from her and I thought was really great is that when you're seen as part of the community, then and they are part of the decision-making process, they're part of your organization, you're part of their community, and you're there to be part of the community, is when like really great community engagement work is happening. But again, it's all starting with trying to build trust in those partnerships and relationships to get the word, to get it going. And it's when you move from outreach efforts to true partnership is when we have great community engagement. So Lucy had a board meeting with the Board of Supervisors scheduled, so we had to move her up. So I apologize from a little bit back and forth because you would really want to just with some really great, again, organizational standards and structures that you could see within the work that you're doing, but also maybe helpful to build and further and deepen your work. So I'm just glad that she was there, but kind of we'll take a step back and just talk about what is community engagement and just building some shared learning and shared understanding as we move forward in the day. So community engagement, just what is it? It's really large, and I looked for a really great, quick, pithy, Judy's word, snappy definition, but I couldn't find one. The one that I found was common as community engagement is defined as a range of opportunities of public involvement in decision making, relationship building, and community capacity building. And community engagement is achieved when community is and feels part of the process. And I think we heard a lot of that from Lucy, but I was wondering if any of you have defined it or your organization has defined it. That's really a great definition of what community engagement is. Anybody that has good or just thoughts on what your personal thoughts are on community engagement? I'll take any suggestions.
Josh from Birth and Beyond, Sacramento Children's Home Valley High Family Resource Center. We consider ourselves part of the community. So, we try to break down those barriers in even some of those labels. We don't refer, we try to not refer to participants in our program as clients, but like they are participants or community members. We don't try to have any superiority complex issued with that of like, oh, we're the rescuers and these are the people that we're helping. Just that we're at different stages. We have different obstacles that we're all dealing with, sort of thing. But one of the community engagement parts that we try to have is, for our community, by our community sort of mentality that we're all in it together.
Go over to Nicole.
Hi. So I think for us at Help Me Grow Yolo County, we've really felt like the community was engaged when we started hearing from families that they heard about us through word of mouth. We do a lot of outreach, over 10,000 people a year, but we don't know where that lands and we don't know what happens to it. But once we got families coming back saying, a friend told us about you, a teacher told us about you, that's when we felt the community is engaged.
It's really great supportive work. And
I would just underline about 30 times and highlight the word relationship.
great, thank you. Yeah, no, I think that wrote down some notes and we'll put it and distribute it out, and maybe together we can create one good definition. So thank you for your input on thoughts and that. So I don't know, has anybody seen this community engagement continuum? It's actually in your packets. And I've seen it used a lot in a lot of different ways and modified in a lot of different ways, which I think is really great because it shows that people can really ingrain it in your work and support different projects. So this is a continuum. It was made by the International Association of Public Participation. Again, I just saw it utilized a lot when I was doing research and outreach on kind of helping build structure and policy around community engagement, as really making it part of a culture and not, again, just not a part of a program that we do. So with this, it says that community and engagement starts with outreach, just being able to have that ability to, I'm going to go reach out to First Five. I'm going to go talk to the CAPC Center. That's just your start, where you can, you have that opportunity, you have that knowledge, and you can communicate with them. And then the next level of engagement is to consult with them. So it's more of a two-way communication. So maybe the first one is just, I'm going to drop off a flyer. And then consulting would be, I'm going to have a conversation about the event that we're going to be holding in the community. The next level is being involved. So instead of just consulting them, they're actually on the committee. They're actually helping you plan. They're actually, they're again, the partner in the process. The next level is collaborate. So it's more of, what can we do together? What does the community need that we could do together? That we can partner and work with together, not just, this is my event and want to be a part of it. It's more like, what event or what is needed and what can we work on together to engage the community, provide them more service, and to benefit the community. And then shared leadership is final decision making, and that's where it's more about being able, entities have formed strong partnerships and structures. The final decision making is at the community level, so really getting the community involved and having not just your partners, but having them to be the final say on what is needed and what's best for community, and to broaden the outcomes and the effects. And it's not just about the event or the organization, but it's bigger. It's about the community. We're making final decisions about the community. So this is the continuum. So has anybody seen it, or is there anything that you see that really stands out that is lacking or you would include in it, or do you think it's pretty good at how it is?
I think that it's a great logic model. It is really what it is. It's a public health logic model, but what it doesn't include is how you get there. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's, okay, these are great things, but how would you get there? Mm-hmm. And I think that that's the part that could be teased out. I know it's individual for each community, mm-hmm, and what you're doing, but that some of that information would be interesting.
Yeah, no, that's really a good point. And so what I have here, and we don't, it's not as detailed as that, but I just want an example of how an organization has used this continuum and to build upon their work every step of the way. And then also they have technique examples on how to get to one level to the next. So I'll just pass them out just as for, oh, thank you, Lola. But really shows how they took the model and just modified it for their use. You can see that the words at the top are a little bit different. You can see that they actually added a layer and said what the promise to the community is, what they want to get out of, what the results or outcomes they would like to see for each level of engagement. So thank you. Thank you, Lola. So just wanted to share with you some examples, and I can also email other examples that I thought were really great, but I thought this was kind of a clear and build upon your comment a little bit about how can be utilized for your work and your efforts. And I also maybe brainstorm or spark a way that you could utilize it for your programs or for your organization. Yes.
Can I give an example? Hi, I'm Lola. I'm with Strategies 2.0 also. And I recently came to Sacramento from Napa County, where we dreamed up a brilliant community engagement idea. So we had a farmer's market, and we noticed that there were lots of moms with small children, but not a lot for them to do. And so we started a farmer's market story time. And that automatically, because we coordinated it, we didn't do all the work, we just coordinated it, gave every staff member an opportunity when they were at a chamber mixer or at an outreach event or whatever to say, hey, would you be interested in reading to kids over the summer? It's just once, you just 20 minutes and you're done. And it was such an easy way to start conversations.
Great. It can utilize and build that to have larger like you said, larger conversations, not just about having the kids having a story time, but what else is needed? How else do you want to be involved? So that's really great. Thank you, Lola, for sharing. I think we have an online. Sorry, can you say that one more time? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Great. Does anybody want to take that on how they've been able to incorporate and allow opportunity for people to make final decision and work with the community to have final decision making? Want to share?
So like Twin mentioned earlier, we've partnered up over the last few years with the Shabazz family and coordinating our community health fair. There's a lot of different parts, including some different assembly persons, offices, the city, different faith-based organizations, ourselves included, with coordinating with the Child Abuse Prevention Center, AmeriCorps volunteers. So there's a whole lot of different hands in that pot. However, because we still respect the lead role of the community members and the family that's coordinating the event, and honoring that local community tradition. And so, sometimes it's just expressing our limitations as far as, hey, this is what we can contribute, and whatever we can't contribute, we will contribute. So, it's not necessarily taking over a community's idea or a community's dream or vision, but just like, hey, we want to help in the ways that we can. Here are our limitations, and this is, what we can contribute for your desired outcome.
Great, thank you. So Judy? Great.
I'd say when you look at the continuum and you go along the continuum, roles change. So the role of the organization changes. So when you're doing outreach, you're active and you're driving the message and you're moving forward. But when you start to do the transition, I think you change from leadership to facilitation. So you're facilitating the process and allowing others to take the role of the active role of leadership and actually driving what's happening on the ground.
Thank you. Yes, and I'll use an example here in Sacramento. A few years ago during the recession, we had huge budget cuts to our schools, and they were proposed, the school districts, Sacramento Unified School District was proposing to close down 9 schools. which all happened to be in low income areas. So there was a lot of outreach about it. There was a community organization that that the parents turned to, that they had a relationship with the parents, and that the community has said, we want to do whatever we can to save these schools. And so that with that partnership, they and with the decision that the parents had made to put their resources and their efforts into saving, you know, 4 of the 9 schools, that, like Judy said, the organization was able to help build the parents understand the process, get to the meetings, have the speaking, having the speaking points, having the speaking skills to really make their case and try to save the schools. So I think kind of relaying on what Judy said, they really listened to the community. The community said this is what we wanted, and they helped be part of that process and help fight for what the community really was desiring. Not for all their schools, no. I think they only got 1. But it really, yeah, and actually not the last learning community, but if everybody was at Fruit Ridge Community Collaborative, that's one of the schools that was shut down. Maple is another school shut down, and now they are thriving hubs for nonprofits where kids can go learn to read. They get after school services. There's other like GED services, and so they've really focused their efforts on making sure that these schools aren't just condemned spaces, that they actually bring life and resources back into the community. So to leave it on a high note, not on a low note. Great. So we've heard from Lucy again of why, you know, they really outlined why they engage and how they engage. I thought of a couple too. As engage, we do in community engagement because we engage on those who know best: community leaders, community organizations, parents, those that are living in the communities. They really understand the workings and you know, can help push for change and what they want that to look like. To engage, to be a representative of a group, you know, again, about breaking down barriers, to be inclusive, making sure that voices are heard in all the different voices that we have in our communities. And then again, about breaking, it's just making sure that it's the process and being active and making decisions and community engagement is accessible and inclusive. Again, just how important it is and how beneficial it can be to make sure that every part of your community has a say and feels like that they can be part of the process. Again, it will also just benefit, like Lucy mentioned, of being accessible to programs and services, feeling welcomed in the programs and services, and that has an overall impact on the community and improving where we live. Is there any other reasons that you think of, or why your organization does community engagement that you think is important that we haven't discussed, or that we have discussed and you just like to read? Sustainability. Great. Any other ones? What's the benefit? So benefit of doing community engagement? No? Providing the community wants you, yeah. Providing what the community needs.
Another benefit that I see for community engagement is that I don't know about other workplaces, but as far as the coming and going revolving door and some of the staff internal turnover we have, that the community members, you know, they live in that community, they reside there. A lot of times there's multi-generational histories there. And so even as staff come and go, the community members, we're having that partnership with the agency or the organization as a whole can have really long-term impact in benefiting that improvement.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so it's kind of got the basis and really, I think, talked about what it is and why we do community engagement, I kind of want to tie into from our last learning community. We ended with a little bit of homework, and which was to observe what strengths and barriers exist internally are at play in your organization when engaging with communities and community leaders. So kind of taking about community engagement, why we do it, what it is, and then kind of now talking or highlighting a little bit more about what you were able to observe was a strength and barrier within your organization, how people talked about it, if there was any, again, like any internal attitudes or cultures that might be barriers, whatever it may be. Would really love to see if anybody that did their homework and shared. And I know that we have a great start off right here. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Cherry. I'm with Aetna Better Health for California. So for this question here, me and my colleagues here, we attend a lot of health fair events, resource events, and just getting involved with the community, just seeing what their biggest needs are. We are able to see and ask them directly on what they want and what they need and what they could see better within the community. And one thing that I've learned is that by observing people in the community on just, their body language and just kind of seeing what they're doing with the community, that's a big factor as well. And just asking the community leaders or just acknowledging what they're doing so we could help directly just assist in any way we can with the community. So, yeah.
In the spirit of the holidays, I have little gifts for those that share their homework with us. A little Starbucks gift card. Is actually, I see, you just gotta see, you never know what you'll reap from your work. I'm actually really excited. I shared with a couple people that I've done nothing for the holidays, but buy these holiday cookies and buy these holiday gift cards. So I'm really excited about sharing. Yes. And sorry for people online. I will send you cookies if you'd like to. They're actually from our local Freeport bakery here, which is delicious. So please take a taste of it. Does anybody else want to share?
At Help Me Grow Yolo County, we talked about some of our strengths being, as we've touched on today, our parent agency being long established helps us connect with their community. We also have specific employees for outreach, so dedicated staff to do that, which is helpful. But we still are having a lot of trouble engaging with leaders from other cultures and in other languages. We just have 2 different Latin backgrounds and 2 different American backgrounds. So we kind of stop there and we try really hard to get past that, but it's difficult. So we've been trying to work with some of our local family resource centers who sometimes have community members for different communities. We haven't been hugely successful with that so far, so it's definitely a barrier for us that we're still trying to figure out how to play that out.
Yeah, that was really hard. We have very diverse communities, so being able to feel like everybody, you can service everybody and where they are is definitely one of the probably bigger barriers I'm sure a lot of people are experiencing. But this is great about learning communities. You can learn from others from other backgrounds. But thank you for sharing. Would you like to share?
Sure. So Penny and I both work for the county government. We're under Health and Human Services Super Agency. She's in the Public Health Division. I'm in the Behavioral Health Division, even though we both do prevention work with youth, try to figure that out. So we finally got them to put us in the same building. So that was a huge win for us. So one of the challenges in the work that we do, and we're finding out just in having a discussion today, so many different programs, even within our own super agency, are doing really great work, but they're not communicating and they're not collaborating with each other. So I think increasingly, I work for substance use disorder services and prevention, and I think increasingly I'm realizing I may need to be the one to step up and facilitate more of the collaboration and more of the joint discussions, and having, I think, more purposeful meetings, because I think everybody is having these separate meetings or coalitions, and they're meeting about a couple specific things, but really we know the work that we're doing is all connected, and it's all information that would be helpful for all of us to share. So I think that's some of the challenge in just that communication, even within our own agency, because really, we're kind of our own community as county employees in our agency, and if we're not working together and communicating, then how are we going to figure out how to communicate and connect better with the community? And I think really we all have knowledge and strengths in the different communities and different sectors that we're working in that really needs to be shared so that we can have more of that connection and providing service.
Thank you.
Suggest probably that you're also all working with very sometimes the same people, right? So, yeah, right. So that's a place to start.
Yes.
In your facility, you're trying to bring people together. That's the case to make.
Great. I think we'll go over here. Last gift.
Hi, I'm Karen Woods from Harmony Health Medical Clinic and Family Resource Center in Yuba County. I know one of the biggest barriers we have is that our Family Resource Center is part of the clinic, which is a federally qualified health clinic. And sometimes that limits us on which communities, organizations that we can work with. Like we can't always work with faith-based organizations, for example, because of the separation of church and state and whatnot. So that can be an issue. And I also know one other issue that we tend to run into on the FRC side is funding. Because of the lack of funding, like we only have one outreach coordinator that is able to go to these events and whatnot to, engage the community and whatever it is. And sometimes we try to get out too, but because we have other jobs too, it can be difficult. But yeah, the funding is always an issue, of course.
Yeah. And sorry. Oh, sorry. Okay. Thank you. Does well, here, I'll go online before I ask that question that she started for me. Sorry.
Okay, so Nicholas shared his response. He said that they have a great internal staff who are passionate about community engagement. However, they find that employees in different departments, primary care and behavioral health, don't always communicate about which events or community meetings they're attending, so they have multiple employees show up to events who didn't even know each other, or the other was going to be there. And so they're working on collaborating on getting a joint schedule going so they can divide resources efficiently.
Great. That's a great example of a solution. I was wondering, is there other solutions? I was thinking especially to the funding one. We heard from Lucy that partnering with others could be really helpful because everybody has different resources and different outlets to get different resources, whether it be food. We found in some work that I've done that engaging we call it grandmas and aunties, they love making food. So when we have community meetings, that they love that being their role, and it also makes them feel more comfortable being there. So just a one-off thing that we've done to help provide food that we know is important for these after nighttime meetings in the community, but as well as having a funding shortage.
One resource that we've tapped into is our tribal partners. They often have funding that is not just restricted to use on tribal lands, that they're trying to increasingly work more to engage with the community at large, because so many of their tribal members go to schools off of the reservation or engage otherwise in the community. So I found that our tribe has been very receptive to partnering and being willing to offer up resources. They a lot of the time don't have the same restrictions that we do around food and purchasing other materials to be able to partner together and do events. So I've found bigger impact in that partnership as well.
Great. Any other feedback from what we heard? Great. I really love what Jerry said about just asking the question and acknowledging that for people that aren't So a lot of communities aren't used to that and aren't used to being seen. So for them to even get asked that question is very empowering to them. And again, like the aunties and grandmas, they would never come to our meetings, but just asking for their help, they really loved being able to provide and support their community in a way that they could. So thank you all for sharing and doing the homework. That's really exciting. I was a little worried about that, but that was really great. Thank you. And we'll see that it's, it'll tie back on what we're doing today. It's just really looking internally, like Lucy had very formalized practices and structures about how and why they engage communities, and maybe your organization does as well, and we love to hear about it. But really looking in what we can do to set ourselves up for success when we do community engagement. Building it as just what we do, so when we're out there or when we have a need or when we want to have work with partners, that we're able to do so. And it's just a common practice for us. Oh, sorry, here's more. This is the actual little handout that we did for our homework. So I'm gonna give out some poster paper, but actually hoping that we can have a little bit more of a table discussion, talk more about the barriers and strengths, and and see if you can come up with some solutions, come up with commonalities, come up with solutions, and then share them out to the group. So let me get some poster paper. Do we know where the oh, it's right here. And then while we're doing this, I'll make sure that lunch is ready for us. So we'll be ready to roll right into lunch. guys and gals. Okay. Will you share first? Let me do there.
We don't have one.
That's fine. That's fine. If you could just come back quickly, and then we can, have more discussion as we scoop up and eat our lunch. But just quickly share. Did anybody identify any common strengths or common barriers that they like to share with the group that they discussed with each other? I'm gonna pick on Michael's table.
So we didn't compare organizations because we talked about just the Sacramento Children's Home Society.
Uh-huh.
So, so it was easy to come up with a list of barriers, but then in the last 2 minutes, they were pretty quick doing strengths, but I'll let them speak to their knowledge of their organization.
Just say that last bit that you said to us, that covered it really well.
Oh, okay. So I'll just start off with the barriers and then work towards our some of our strengths. So some of the barriers were, just either individual or collective enthusiasm. Really establishing that as a site and cultural value. And to be honest, the community engagement, it does take a lot of time and energy, as well as we have a lot of short-term deliverables and milestones that we're, trying to meet for, retention of funding. But we were ultimately talking about how community engagement is really a long-term investment that will actually help us in the long run meet those deliverables and those different milestones. So some of the strengths and ways that we're currently building our community engagement is utilizing parent leaders as our champions and getting us engaged with the community and bringing folks that otherwise wouldn't be interested in our services to really actually access those and to not only become a participant but an advocate for. Having the elevator speeches prepared and able to have all of our staff present it not just for their own programs but for the other programs, so that as a community member's ears perk up when we talk about parent bonding classes, it's like, all right, well, now I'm going to pivot and adjust my elevator speech to what they're interested in. Yeah, that's all.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah. Community engagement really takes, like you said, time. It's building trust, it's building relationships. That just takes time and effort. So keeping that enthusiasm up when you meet barriers or just the work is long hours can be really difficult. But I think you have some key things here of how you can support staff to make sure that to help them be successful, and then also just know that they're being supportive and has the tools that they need to go out and reach the community. So thank you. And yeah, I really love, I think a couple of people have pointed out, just identifying the assets that already exist in the community and really uplifting their voices and bringing them in is a really great strength. Thank you for sharing. Can I go over here now? This one?
We're one of the ACES connection communities in California, and one of the things we tend to struggle with is a structure. Because we all are volunteers and there's no set of guidelines for the board of directors or the steering committee or the community at large. And so things will come out of steering or the community, but then there can be or action might work at one meeting, but then is it 3 people at that meeting and then 12 at the next, and what happened at that last meeting? So that was just if anybody had experience with that.
Yeah.
She had some ideas. So.
Oh, great. Yeah, communication, infrastructure, and just expectations that we are moving forward. So you better be at the meeting. If you're not, decisions, will have to be made, or progress will have to be made. And we can't stop the progress because one person wasn't able to make the meeting or whatnot. But I think just setting up expectations maybe, and then also strengthening communications of what's going to happen and what the outcomes are for each time that you meet is things that I find really helpful. Is this especially just providing a purpose and outcomes really engages and motivates people to be there.
Oh no, as far as having the umbrella organization too.
Yeah, I was just sharing with her, like, because I know we're trying to launch an ACES connection over in our county, and I had told her that we had decided that that would fall under an umbrella of a subgroup from our county. So like our child care planning council, Children's Council had created a prevention network. And in that prevention network, we're going to launch the ACES connection through that so that the prevention network can kind of oversee them or oversee the process and whatnot, and that it wouldn't be on individuals to do it, because someone like me who would be involved, I would be leaving eventually, and where's the sustainability in someone that leaves, and then now what kind of thing.
Yeah, that's a great idea, putting it, partnering it up with an organization that has infrastructure to keep it going. That's a great idea too.
Not that this is a novel idea, but like when I go to the state and the county meetings, they're required to provide minutes of the meetings, and I find them super helpful. I make most of the meetings, but when I don't make the meetings, I can get up to speed. I know what was discussed. I know where they tacked on to what we talked about last time, and I'm up to speed, as opposed to just I have a lot of ACES connected meetings that I go to, and we honestly don't always know what they're for. Like a lot of them have titles that sound the same as the other title, and then we're like, okay, I guess we'll just go to that one too. But I mean, the reality of like, what did that meeting cover? Because maybe there's a better staff member to send to that meeting. If we knew specifically what they were covering, that would be great. So I mean, minutes I think are a super helpful piece of making sure the right people are at the right meetings.
Okay, thank you.
Did you want to share just anything that came up out of your discussion?
So we don't have a solution to this problem, but we talked about title ambiguity and how different organizations title their people differently. And then you don't know how to connect to somebody in another organization. You don't know who to contact. Do I contact the executive director? Am I contacting the CEO? Like, who am I talking to make that community outreach? And you wouldn't necessarily know by the titles outside of that organization who to talk to. And so we think that's difficult.
Yes.
And we also talked specifically for them, because they're really big compared to us who are very small, is that they're really underfunded to prove a concept. So the expectation at Aetna would be that whatever you put out is big and complete, and it's a high expectation. And they are a new managed care plan, so they don't have a lot of people in the program yet paying into the program, so there's not a lot of extra funding to go and do that. Whereas with the small organization, we started out doing it for free without any funding. And then once we got people coming and saying that it was helping them, that's how we got First Five to fund it. But we have that luxury because we're tiny and the expectation for us is low, but it's really hard if you're big like Aetna. You're just underfunded to prove a concept. You have to already know what you're going to do. And then they have the same language barrier issues of just getting buy-in from other community members. And it's hard sometimes. The community outreach specialists usually speak 2 languages. And if you have the wrong one in the wrong town, then there was no point in sending that person anyway. So we have that same problem too, where it's like, you sent that one, but they did nothing there all day because nobody could talk to them. So again, minutes would be helpful for that too. Like, who is this community? What language are these people speaking, so you can get the right people there?
Great. And I don't know the expectations of Aetna, but maybe just listening to community and connecting and seeing what they're doing that's successful, and then being able to support that to deepen it and grow it, maybe a way as you're building your work. And title ambiguity and just people moving is always an issue. And if anybody has any suggestions, we would love to hear it. But also, again, just being out sounds like we do actually, being out in the community and just making those connections is really helpful.
I do have a suggestion for Aetna. Just because we've partnered with other, like for example, was Liberty Dental was one of them. They had a representative who got the position and said, "I don't know what the heck I'm doing. Like, do you have any suggestions?" And she was told to go to the FRCs. There's 9 of it in Sacramento County. You can't go wrong with stopping by one of them and saying, learning a little bit more about the community you're serving and how can you be a part of the community that you're charged to serve. So that is one advice I can give you guys, is to really start building that partnership, especially with the FRCs, because Liberty Dental is thriving very much now, and all the partnerships they've created within the Sacramento County to establish that.
Yeah, and connecting with Liberty Dental, seeing how they were able to do. Yeah. Yeah. Great, great. I think you guys want to share what you've been discussing?
Just a little bit.
Okay, yeah, just anything.
Me again. So we talked about maybe since there are already a lot of existing meetings, sometimes we feel like all we do is go to meetings, right? A lot of other existing meetings, and maybe looking at how can we maybe condense those to make it more meaningful and cover a broader array of topics that are relevant for everybody, kind of, combining efforts. And again, back to the communication piece, how do we communicate more effectively and share information to be more effective?
Thank you. Okay, so I won't hold up any longer. Please grab some food. We have some drinks in the blue bin there as well, but it's from Sauce. So there's coleslaw, muffins, beans, and then pork and chicken with barbecue sauce. So please dig in. We'll take a short lunch break, and then we just have a couple more things that I think will be interesting, ties into our topic today. started again in a few minutes, but there's plenty of food, so go get seconds if you want them. Everybody get enough to eat? Good, good. And before I lose you to food coma, we'll get started, get the brain going. All right, so I lost my little clicker. Here it is. So assessing your community engagement. We heard Lucy talk about doing community assessments, and I know a lot of you do community assessments and going out and listening to the community of what their needs are. But I also think it can be really helpful to take a look and do an internal assessment of your level of engagement and your organization's level of engagement. But just for the purposes of today, there's a lot of different assessment tools. But since we're here and we have different different types of organizations and people, and your sphere of influence will be a little different, but everybody can always look internally in themselves to assess what they think their strengths are, and where their needs are, where their gaps are from the work that you do. So for community assessment tools can help you or your organization identify strengths or needs and gaps, like I just said. It can help you track progress if you do your assessment, help build resources and infrastructure for engagement so you can identify what is needed, and then better ensure that your organ is being purposeful when engaging the community. So just making sure that you're tracking either what your mission says, why, making sure that you are following through on why you want to engage and when you want to engage. This assessment tool can can do that for you, kind of like how we do that for our positions, and again for community assessment, can really help improve internal processes and structures. And then there's many ways to use the tools. Like I said, doing an individual assessment and kind of look at today for your personal growth, as well as where you want to advocate for resources within your organization, what you need to help build your success in community engagement efforts. You could do it with your staff or with your team to assess the work that you're doing, and how I got a couple of typos, sorry, how your skills contribute to the community, with the board members to begin a deeper conversation with them if you want them to provide their time or expertise, or again, show the purpose of community engagement and why we need to fundraise or to build funds in the budget for community engagement. And also, just like we go out to the community to do community assessments, they could be really helpful in doing assessments of your organization in the community engagement work that you do. So these are just some of the ways that you can use the assessment tool. If you look in your packet, you have this green and purple, just says community engagement assessment tool at the top. And like I said, there's multiple ones, and I can provide links to other resources or other samples of assessment tools. I like this one. One of the reasons why it's geared towards the individual. So like I said, we're just going to look at ourselves and assess ourselves. And then it starts with outreach, like we talked about, that being the basis, using the continuum, that's being the starting point of community engagement, and then to what they just label as CE, but actually the community engagement, being part of the community, being seen part of the community, and as the community trust and partnership that brings them to the table, that brings you to the table. So I think that if we take just a couple of minutes, read through the community engagement assessment tool, start filling it out for yourselves, but also you can identify what is still needed. Like, this is a great tool, but we really want to assess, the board. We really want to assess specifically to staff. So what should we include in that? But just take a few minutes, read through this community assessment tool, fill it out if you want to for yourself, or recommend it just to see, engage where you are and what level you're at. And then we can talk about the benefits or what else we could modify this to be more helpful. Oh, sorry. Yes, And online, if you want to, you can see the template and the structure of the assessment. And so you can start off with what kind of relationship do you have with the community, see how it's set up. Does that make sense? What else can we add to it? And what other questions we can add or guidelines for the assessment tool? What would you include? So we'll walk through the first one together. So what kind of relationship do you have with community members? And then the first one is relationships are primarily transactional all the way to relationships are foundational. And then just like continuing to build conversations, trust, that you feel like you're you have making decisions together. It's the basis of what you do. So are you doing outreach and or you're unsure that you're doing it? Doing primarily outreach, so it's just a one-way conversation, more the transactional one that they're talking about. Beginning to talk about moving to CE, so more of that back and forth conversation, and then working towards C, so collaborating, and then actually community engagement. We are doing it. So again, sorry if I didn't make this clear, utilizing the continuum and showing tracking the progress from outreach to all the way to community engagement, shared leadership, tracking, see where you are at for each of these questions. Yes, just do a check mark. Sorry. Oh yeah, just do a check mark on what level you are. Thank you. Sorry, that was a little easier than. Yes, sorry. It just requires a check mark of where you think your level of engagement's at. Great. For those online, we're uploading the documents from the session right now. So you'll have the community engagement assessment tool and the continuum in just a few moments.
people are generally done reviewing and maybe looking at filling it out for themselves?
So I think people are done, and we've uploaded it to the online to-go meeting. So hopefully all our people online have it as well by now. I'd like to see if we can mix it up a little bit. Maybe can we have you two join this group right here? And then little Michael, you join that group right there. And then maybe if you guys could, one of you go to one of the tables just to mix it up, see new faces, a little different insight. Great. Then Nicole and Martin. Nicole and Martin, if you want to join one of these two tables as well, we'll have a larger conversation. Thank you. So just as a group, talk about, do you think the assessment, having an assessment would be helpful to evaluate your community engagement? What would you add or change about this? Like I said, there's all different tools, and we'll send out different examples. But you know, what's important to your organization? What you think is important to assess community engagement to take you to the next level? What areas of engagement would you like to focus on? And where did you see any need for additional support? And when I say that, I just mean for your, did this tool help you identify what other supports you'll need, what other tools, what other resources besides time and money that came to mind when filling out this assessment? So we'll take just a few minutes, start having, just have a conversation. Did you guys find it helpful? Did you change, modify? All great things. So excited. I think we should share a little bit if that's okay. I know there was a lot of discussion, so I'll give you a minute to think about it. But if there anybody right away, they know they heard something that really made them think about a new way to utilize a tool, or why they, or a way that they would want to utilize it or incorporate it in the work that they're doing. Any thoughts are really great. Ideas that came from the conversations. Does anybody want to share? I know that there's a lot going on, so there has to be something. You guys. Oh, great. And I don't know. Oh.
Before I lose my thought.
I think what I heard here was that this might be a valuable tool to do with a partner or partners, and use it to start a conversation that's been going on for a long, long time, that still feels like you would be starting it for some people. But it'd just be because it's a different way of looking at how you engage community, or it's just a tool to talk about how you engage community that might help people see things from a different perspective, even though the conversation has been going on for a long time and kind of hitting walls.
You also had added taking the information you get and using it, no matter if that was the information you were looking for or not, but to take what you did get and go, okay, what is that telling me about the way we're engaged with the community now?
Great point. Any thoughts from this table before we move on?
I'll share one.
Okay, great.
So earlier I was talking about one of the barriers being potentially enthusiasm. And so I would really like to take this assessment tool back and share it with my team and see what their perspectives are on whether we're doing the outreach or the community engagement side. And then once having their perspectives and opinions shared, then using that to get group buy-in and motivation for, all right, let's then target these specific aspects of how we can improve these scores.
Awesome. Great. Thank you. Any other thoughts? Heard a lot of great discussions. Hopefully it was beneficial. Yes. Yes. So I'll send this version out, and then I have also a couple other ones that go into different, like, institutional structure and board questions to ask a board if you wanted to, submit it and have them involved in it. So I'll provide this one as well as a couple other samples electronically. And also at the end, we will be sending out the PowerPoint and all the handouts from today electronically to everybody. So I think that unless there's anything else, we've talked about it a little bit, and but wanted to really have one more group discussion about tools and resources. One about how, whatever popped up from this conversation, I'll hand out a sheet of paper, and if we could just write down some things that you think would be helpful to improve or deepen your community engagement. And sky's the limit. Things that you want to learn about more, things that you would like to have access to, or things that you already utilize that have been really helpful that you think everybody should know about. So I'll hand out some pieces of paper. If you can just jot down some things. One, I think it just wraps up the conversation today, and we can send it out in the notes, but also would really love input on tools, resources that we should take a deep look into and bring back and discuss as a group for the next learning community to help improve and deepen our community engagement. And really love to feedback on what you guys would love to hear more about for that. So I will go just, I guess, bring a couple papers to each of the tables, and then also I'd love from the hear from the online community as well. I lost my clicker, but I will click it so that'll be can read it on the screen as well. Oh, oh, perfect. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks. All right. Here you go. Oh. Yes, thank you, Judy. So I'd love to make a quick thought too is tools and resources doesn't have to be an assessment tool. It doesn't have to be a community, basically this like hard thing or food or something like that. It can be, you have a really great policy that you guys use. You have great values and attitudes at your organization, and how did you instill that? It could be, yeah, just attitudes and your mission, just the basis that's really engaging, that's really drives home community engagement. So those are all really great things too, that if that made a really big impact in your organization, we would love to hear about that, because those are important foundational things that go on top of the other tools like assessment tools and like communication tools to reach out to the community. So kind of just wanted to broaden thinking about what tools are to really help you build and foster the relationships and trust that is needed for community engagement. So that you guys could have a couple minutes on that. All right, please write everything down because again, we're going to take it and utilize it for next time. But share any lasting thoughts with each other. We just have a couple minutes left. It's about 1:25. So if you guys could, again, just wrap up and then really appreciate if you could fill out the evaluation form before you take off. Can do that too. Oh, if there's anybody that has either big family or just a big appetite and wants to take the chicken or the pork home, please do so. If you want to take it back to work, I would really appreciate it. But yeah. Yes, we'll do homework. Oh, and here's your.
There's been times where I am a man.
Take a quick minute. Thank you.
You know, but the thing is about keeping the family together. That's what we want.
Thank you. Online folks, if you have any ideas, please share and we'll include that in our notes. Oh, let me grab these for, I'll grab them. Thank you. All right. Just wanted to